That's true. The best horse racing podcast with the worst music. It's the Horse Racing Happy Hour. Byron King alongside from BloodHorse. My name's Louis Rabeau. As you can tell, not in the usual studio, hanging out here at ESPN 680 1057, where you can catch me every weekday, 10 to noon, on Rabeau & Co., and usually on Friday nights at 6 o'clock as well, as part of the Kentucky Racing Spotlight. Our friends over at Churchill Downs, hosting Inside Churchill Downs during that time slot right now. Young Byron, how are you? Things good? Busy
Good.
season for you?
I like being called young. Thank you, sir.
I know how to get people to come
Charmer.
back to the show. Don't worry. That's exactly right. Yeah, I've been married a quarter century for a reason, Byron. You settle down. All right. Well, look, you just, I love to, one of the things that's been a great joy of mine, Byron, and you and I have frankly known each other longer than, me just having, BloodHorse Monday on my resume. But one of the things I love about getting to connect at a place like BloodHorse is those bylines we see with your name all the time. We don't always get to catch up with you and Bob Ehalt, those guys, Jay Hovde, whoever it might be, that are out there, and getting to put you on screen like this is awesome. How was your vacation very recently? Tell people where you went and what you did.
Oh, wow. Isn't this fun? Well, for those that don't know, when I'm not at the racetrack, I'm usually out in nature enjoying the wonderful beauty that our country has. And I was on the Arizona-Utah border visiting a place called The Wave, which is a unique rock formation that you got to win a lottery to go to. So I went there and had a great time with some good buddies. So thank you for asking.
No, that's awesome. Glad it worked out. I was even able to suggest to the great hiking Byron King a spot in Puerto Rico that he's got to go check out sometime. I'm telling you, the Caribbean Championships are at Camarero this year. That's a good excuse to get BloodHorse to fly you to San Juan, and then it's a 30-minute drive to Yunque, man. I'm just saying.
I think we should definitely submit it.
Yeah, you and I should probably be the ones that go. Byron King on with us, of course. I speak the language at least. All right, so further ado, moves to the top here, and it's cool to have Byron on this time of year, of course, since he is the author of the Derby Dozen, part of a great line of riders there at BloodHorse that have carried on the Derby Dozen tradition. I was there on Saturday at Keeneland Racecourse as Further Ado went ahead and romped against that field. Our mutual colleague Joe Perez was very quick to point out that, hey, this wasn't the field we thought it was going to be. He also pointed out this is what you're supposed to do against a lesser field. So I will hold it up as a very good win. I think it is. He owns a worthy spot at the top of your Derby Dozen. Did you go into the day assuming he would get there, thinking he might, or what did you think going into the day?
I was literally like hemming and hawing of which one I should put first, Renegade or him. And it was a tough call. I mean, essentially, it's the same kind of call that Steve Rushing, the jockey agent for Irad Ortiz Jr., had to analyze, right? Which of these two horses am I going to ride in the Kentucky Derby? And by the way, he chose Renegade, according to reporting from David Grenning. And that's probably the safer choice in the sense that, Renegade is 2 for 2 this year. He won the Arkansas Derby handily. The big question with Further Ado is, can he transfer the brilliance that we've seen from him at Keeneland to Churchill Downs, right? I mean, he's had 2 races at Keeneland that he has won by 20 lengths and 11 lengths. His other races have been good, but not the same kind of blowouts. So that's the big question. Just what you mentioned just a moment ago too, Louis, is, yes, he won by 11 lengths, but the Bluegrass didn't have Paladin in it. It didn't have Class President in it. And those were 2 of the leading contenders that many thought would be in contention for that race. So what was left? But at the same time, they were 11 lengths behind him. So, he ran up the score on them. He got a huge buyer figure off the top of my head. I want to say it's like a 106. Yep. And I ultimately went his way for this reason. I think sometimes we see patterns in things that aren't necessarily patterns, but just coincidence, right? Maybe this horse is just a Keeneland freak, right? And runs at a far higher level there than elsewhere. But maybe for other reasons on those particular days, he really just shined, right? The fact of the matter is he does have a win in the Kentucky Jockey Club at Churchill Downs. Yep. Renegade does not. He does not have that proven victory over the track. And through the years, if a lot of times we've seen the top buyer speed figure horse go into the Kentucky Derby, and people pick against him for one reason or another. Oh, it was accomplished with an easy lead, or it had things were his way, and then a lot of times they win anyway. So, ultimately, I just gave him the slight nod on that, but I certainly respect Renegade a great deal. Same thing with Commandment, the Puma. These are all very, very legitimate, good horses, and it should be a exciting Derby.
Chief Wallaby, fourth on your list here, and I wanted to ask you, because every year we're looking for that route to the Derby that we think is the best quality, right? And certainly the races in Florida this year, inclusive of Tampa as well, right? You bring up Renegade. That Sam F. Davis might end up being one of the grand stories of the 3-year-old season. You mentioned the Puma, you mentioned him. I mean, how telling might the Sam F. freaking Davis be this year?
I know, exactly. And this is a race that recently, I can't remember if it was this year or the past year, but it was downgraded from a grade 3. It has, through the years, not produced many Kentucky Derby horses. For that matter, the Tampa Bay Derby has been fairly limited too.
Sure.
But, I mean, there's no doubt about it. I mean, you look at the Sam F. Davis, he wins it. The Puma's third, right? I mean, those are two of the leading contenders. Compare that to, say, even if you look at the Bluegrass, as much as I'd like Further Ado, I mean, I think a lot of us, except the most diehards, if you had, or unless you cashed on the exacta or the try, it'd be hard to remember who was second and third because it was a somewhat forgettable opposition in there, right? So, it was a great race for the Sam F. Davis and even the Tampa Bay Derby, and obviously the Further Ado in the Puma. The Puma won that race and then missed by a whisker in the Florida Derby. So. It seems quite strong too. So, these things sometimes they vary very much from year to year. Depending on where the strength is, and obviously people like to take their better horses down to warmer climates like Florida, and the Florida Derby was a great race, which, by the way, has been the most productive prep through the years. And this year was no different in terms of depth. I mean, I think you could take 3 horses from that race, Commandment, the Puma, and Chief Wallaby, and say all of them have huge chances in the Kentucky Derby.
Yeah, of course, the connections of Mage, hoping they can run it back with the Puma this year. 2 horses right behind your top 5 that I'm personally fascinated by. I think the buzz horse this year will be Silent Tactic, not a 100-point winner. Everybody loves a deep closer, Byron, and so I think he'll end up being that kind of horse. But another one that's absolutely a candidate is 7th on your list here. And it's the son of Candy Ride, an emerging market, is going to go to the Derby. Only his 3rd start ever. You mentioned Leonatus, 1883 in the article as part of your analysis of, hey, horses just don't do this. A couple years ago, of course, we had Justify come out in his 4th and then go ahead and win his 5th and 6th as well within the next couple of weeks as well. How good is emerging market? And is there a chance that I'm right about Silent Tactic here, that he's the one because of that closing style, the fact that he's not a top winner? Frankly, it reminds me a little bit of Mystic Dan this year.
Yeah, very similar. I'd say, he might be a horse that has to get the right trip. Maybe some of the other ones maybe have to have a little bad luck or they don't fire. But that happens in horse racing, right? I mean, when you look at Silent Tactic, he's been 1st or 2nd in every race. So a super honest horse. And that, by the way, is quite uncommon for a late runner as he is. You've got Hall of Fame trainer Mark Cassey that's training him. You have an owner in John Oxley who's already won the Kentucky Derby. Yeah. So you have some definite elements to like. I mean, it's what's hard is you just can't. It's hard to get out of your head that Arkansas Derby when he sits a sweet trip, he moves up, he looks like he's going to win or contend, and Renegade just goes whoosh, on by. So he's got to find a little more in his next race, but at the same time, our Renegade regresses, that kind of a thing. But he's legit, at least in terms of belonging in the race. And I think, you mentioned Mystic Dan. That's a good example. I mean, was Mystic Dan the best horse in the Derby? Well, he was the best horse with Brian Hernandez going through an opening about this big on the turn to save ground. and that was key in the victory. Now, to the horse's credit, he was brave and went through there, and a lot of horses wouldn't. But I think, when we look back at that, was, Sierra Leone and Forever Young were superior horses to Mystic Dan, but on that day it was Mystic Dan, and I think some of the other things that we talked about. Who was the other horse you mentioned? Not Simon.
Emerging Market.
Emerging Market. I'm sorry, my escaped me.
Okay.
Emerging Market. Experience is not what it used to be in the Derby. Back in the day, we used to say, "Oh, you need to have all these starts at 2 and this, that, and the other." It's very hard, first of all, to make the Derby with 2 starts, because how would you do it? I mean, you kind of have to do it the way he did it, which is like win first out and then qualify in a big points race, right? I mean, there's really no other way to do it with 2 starts. When Justify did it with 3 starts, he had a maiden win, an allowance win, and then did the Santa Anita Derby. Yep. Mage took a slightly different route. He qualified by running second in the Florida Derby. So it can be done with limited experience, but it just stands to reason that he's up against it. But, Flavian Pratt is sticking with Emerging Market. I think some of that has to do with loyalty to the Chad Brown stable and whatnot. That's a major client for him. But at the same time, quite an endorsement. So, these are horses that I think both of those two, they come with a little more question marks than the first half dozen or so on my list, but they're very, very nice 3-year-olds.
Your top 3 all won a 100-point prep coming in. We have not had a 100-point prep winner win the Kentucky Derby since Justify. Does that get snapped this year in your mind? If I gave you the top 3 in your Derby dozen or the rest of the field, what would you take today in the Kentucky Derby?
Oh, wow, that's a good question. I would take the top 3, I guess.
Okay, all right.
I guess I would. But at the same time, I mean, let's be honest with it too. Is if you like Commandment, you gotta like the Puma. He was only this far behind him.
Chief Wallaby's in that group then.
Chief Wallaby's a half length back and lightly raced, so capable of improving. So
sure.
We're talking a fine line. There is no. I don't think there is the equivalent of the Michigan Wolverines in this year's Kentucky Derby. There's not one team that's just gonna stand out so far ahead of the others. And I think some of that competitiveness is reflective in the Florida Derby.
You have Potente 1 spot ahead of So Happy as far as your Derby dozen. Obviously, both of them coming out of that Southern California route to the Derby. I was there for the San Felipe, Byron. I won't lie to you. I'm not overly impressed with that group, but boy, I gotta say, So Happy. I'm wondering, especially with him, Byron, if I'm doing the thing where I didn't expect him to do what he did, so I'm very impressed by it because of that, or if he actually just ran a damn good race. Which one was it in your mind? Can he get the 10?
Yeah, I mean, I think the Santa Anita Derby, the reason why I have them in the order that I do is they've traded decisions, right? So in the San Felipe, Potente beats So Happy, and then in the Santa Anita Derby, So Happy beats Potente. Now, the trips were different. In the San Felipe, Potente rated, sat just behind the speed, came on and won. That's what So Happy did in the Santa Anita Derby. I felt like Potente was up with another speed horse who ended up finishing last, if I'm not mistaken. And I think it just took a little of the starch out of him. I think he would be probably better suited from stalking. But ultimately, I think both of these horses, are not on the same level as the leaders in my Derby dozen. But I think I have Potente in part ahead of So Happy because of who trains him. I mean, let's face it, Bob Baffert has won 6 Kentucky Derbies and 2 Triple Crowns. If you overlook Bob Baffert at Churchill Downs on the first Saturday in May, shame on you, right?
Yeah. No, we learned that with Medina Spirit for sure. Byron King with us, of course, from BloodHorse. His Derby doesn't appreciate him sharing those thoughts. You catch that every Tuesday ahead of the Kentucky Derby. Let's get into some handicapping here in our final segment on the Horse Racing Happy Hour. Louis Rabeau hanging out with you in the studios of ESPN 680 and 105.7. The Maker's Mark Mile, we don't need to do a deep dive in this, but I thought it was very cool and very telling about probable that we're going to see him again a couple times here in North America, again with notable speech being in the field here. I like to say things like this. Do you know how I know that this is a grade 1 field is that Brilliant Birdie is 20-1. That's how
true.
I know this is a grade 1 field. Just your general thoughts about this race, Byron.
Yeah, it's loaded. I mean, you literally are bringing back a champion. He was the last year's champion male turf horse in Notable Speech, who, of course, won the Breeders' Cup Mile and the Woodbine Mile. And no one's running scared. I mean, it's just a kind of amazing that you have all these great horses in there. Besides him, you've got a horse like Rhetorical, who was 4th in the Breeders' Cup Mile and won the Coolmore Turf Mile at Keeneland last year. You have a horse like, talk about another huge long shot, who's an accomplished horse in his own right, Troubleshooting, but Zulu Kingdom you have in there. You have Wolfie's Dynagos, Deterministic, who is one of the best turf horses of the first half of last year. I mean, it's a great race, but I mean, Notable Speech, Charlie Appleby, when he runs horses in North America, his record is kind of like off the charts. And he runs 2 in here. He runs Amori City as well. And he has been known at times to surprise a little bit, but it's kind of hard to look at Amori City's form and conclude that he's better than Notable Speech. But just a fantastic race on a Friday, no less. So if that doesn't make you want to leave or work a little early on a Friday, what would, right?
Post time of 5:16 Eastern time. You can still get out there and catch that one, the late double if you want, even at Keeneland on Friday. Talking with Byron King from BloodHorse. We'll move on to Saturday now. Looking at the late pick 3, they have changed the pick 3 wagering there at Keeneland to follow the rest. Certainly the California circuit is what I think of immediately. The $3 late pick 3 minimum, $3, races 9, 10, and 11 on Saturday. And another, speaking of great turf fields, we get to Jenny Wiley to kick this one off, Byron, in race 9. Fillies and Mares going 8.5 furlongs there. Mile and a 16th on the turf, 4 and up, 650 in the kitty. Another one of these fields where you're going to know a lot of the names, and when Maduro is 12-1 coming from the West Coast, it's a great one. There you go, Byron. I'll leave it over to you.
This is another stacked field, but this is a race that through the years, like a lot of races for fillies and mares on the grass, that Chad Brown has dominated, right? So he has 2 clear contenders here in Sagesta and Dynamic Pricing, both of whom are very high class. Sagesta won last year and would be my top choice in here. She won out at Del Mar at the end of the year with just an incredible move. And just really looks like a special horse. Chad Brown, I should, mention his success. He's won this race 7 times. And there's been times, without looking it up, where he's run, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, that kind of stuff. Dynamic Pricing is his other one. I would say if there is one that's not among the Brown squad, it would be Lush Lips. Lush Lips cost like over $3 million.
Incredible.
Went through auction and has been just as good this year as last year. But I would rate her just behind those. But I think those 3 are the class of the race in that particular order. Sagesta, Dynamic Pricing, Lush Lips for me.
Of course, Sagesta last year was second in the First Lady, the other grade 1, the October grade 1 for fillies and mares, over a mile there at Keeneland. Should be right there. She won the matriarch as Byron mentioned there as well. The grade 3 Lexington, no Derby implications in this one, Byron. It's been a while since we've been able to say that. But a mile and a 16th short stretch there at Keeneland. Grade 3, 400,000 on the line, 3-year-olds in here. I'll ask you for your winner in just a second, but if we were looking for the Gosger of this year, a horse that's going to show up in the Preakness, show up in some other races, who might that be in this field?
Well, I enjoyed writing up our preview for this race and chatting with Joey Peacock, who is the owner of The Hell We Did, which is a great name, by the way, The Hell We Did. This horse is a half to senior Buscador, who of course won the Saudi Cup a couple years back and was just a great horse. So even though this horse comes from kind of these little smaller tracks, beware him at your own risk. He ran 108 flat in winning at Sunland last time, and he's a contender who's bred to stretch out. Obviously, if he's a half to Senior Buscador, to a mile and a 16th here. Corona de Oro is an interesting horse to me as well, on the fence. This is a horse that has run well in recent starts. So they could potentially go on. I mean, the only horse that could maybe have enough points to run in the Derby would be Confessional, who has 15 already. The Lexington, just to backtrack a little, is one of the lesser points races on the road to the Derby. It's more of a tiebreaker. That's how it was designed. And through the years, we've had a few horses take final cracks to qualify. And there's been a couple that have won the race that have gone on to compete, some decently in the Derby, but most recently, Disarm picked up like 6 points for running third a few years back and used that to make it into the Derby. So Confessional, if he won, would have 35 points, which as it currently stands is not enough to get in, but there's usually defections and things, and he could potentially. The rest of them are probably looking at, if they want to run in a Triple Crown race, looking at the Preakness, which quite honestly makes a lot more sense for these horses. I mean, I think the Preakness is the easiest of the 3 Triple Crown races. What happens is so many of the horses dial in on the Derby, and then only some of those are going to come back in the Preakness because of the short turnaround. And if they do, they're at risk of, regression on short rest. So that honestly is usually the better path for success than for, taking that home run swing for the Derby in 3 weeks. But that's easier said than done if you, as a turf rider and not the owner of the horse, who has dreamed his whole life of winning the Kentucky Derby. So,
As Brad Cox said to me on BloodHorse Monday, I'll train the horses, Louis. You worry about the radio. No, that's exactly right. He does have a pair in here that I think are pretty interesting. Actually, he's got, the pair of Easem, who didn't look great on debut at Gulfstream Park, moves that one up to Colonial, wins easily under Flavian Pratt, who keeps them out here. And then Confessional, as you mentioned, either of those stand out because he's, Morning Line's got Easem, of course, as the favorite here. If you had to bet one of those two, which one would you lean on, you think?
I would lean on Confessional more so than Easem. Easem, while he won by 19.5 second out and certainly was a dominant winner, I just look at the company lines for Confessional and would conclude that he is the most likely winner. I mean, you just look at his form. First of all, he wins at Keeneland last year, so he has that proven kind of ability to handle the track. But then you look at him, he runs against Nearly, who goes on to win the Holy Bull Stakes. Then he runs against Renegade in the Puma in the Sam F. Davis. And then he runs against Incredibolt in the Virginia Derby. So this is a horse that is battle-tested against some high-class competition. Certainly a big maiden winner can repeat. Those kinds of horses do on occasion. But for the most part, if you're following the horses that keep the best company in the class, I think I would lean in that direction. But I don't know that I would. If you ask me, like, would you single Confessional in here? I wouldn't have quite that level of confidence. To me, I think I'd spread a little bit in here. I think I would use Corona de Oro, a big maiden winner from Fairgrounds on the rail. Another interesting horse, and we didn't talk about The Hell We Did, which I mentioned earlier, but Decisive Win. Here's an interesting horse, Louis, because this horse is a maiden running against winners and is trained by Doug O'Neill.
Yep.
And talk about a bold move here. So the horse runs first out, and he's bet down to 3-1. He duels for the early lead. He runs fourth, right? The winner of that race, Crude Velocity, comes back, and it was just a dynamite winner earlier this month at Santa Anita. Most of the time, a trainer, particularly a winning trainer, a leading trainer like a Doug O'Neill, is going to come back in a maiden race, right? No, they're putting him on the plane and running for 400,000. So I think they think the world of him. They've spent $600,000 for him, and he comes off a 6 furlong workout, 1:11 1/5. So I think it's quite encouraging, the level of confidence they're showing in this horse. So I would throw him. He's 15-1. I think he'll get bet down from that, but I'd sprinkle him in there and some pick threes too.
Week off there in Southern California, at least at Santa Anita Park, means those jocks are available. You'll see Juan Hernandez and Antonio Fresu at Keeneland on Saturday. We'll close the card with the maiden special weight here at Keeneland on Saturday, 8.5 on the turf. 3-year-olds here. Byron, quick pick, 110K in the kitty.
Well, I think you got to go with Here's Johnny as your top choice in here. This is a horse that's look at the company lines that he raced against last year when competing as a maiden. And then you throw in some other interesting elements about this horse. He's by Oscar Performance, who's a fantastic a turf sire, and he's also very well bred. He's a full to a grade 1 winner on the grass. So Here's Johnny looks very, very good in this particular spot with some consideration as well, I would give to West End Kid and Coordinator.
Yeah, I would give West End Kid my nod on top here. At some point, Tyler's going to win a race at Keeneland, and it may as well be for Will Walden on Saturday. So there you go. All right, Byron, we appreciate you very much. Of course, BloodHorse.com for everything Byron's working on, the Derby Dozen, all the other things. And you can read his preview of the Lexington and the hell we did, the connections there with Todd Fincher and all that up at BloodHorse as well. Byron, appreciate it very much, and I'm sure I'll catch up with you down the line.
You're most welcome, Louie. See you.
There you go. Byron King with us here on the Horse Racing Happy Hour. Appreciate him jumping on the program. We'll let Byron get on out of here. Remind you some programming on this show tomorrow, 2 o'clock. We'll do SoCal Saturdays. I mentioned that they're off at Santa Anita. Barry and I are talking Los Al. You're damn right we are. We're going to talk some Los Al here tomorrow. So make sure you get tuned in for that. Tomorrow morning, 10 o'clock, 10:20 segment, I should say, on Rabone Co. Dan Issel, Mr. Keeneland himself will join me to do a little bit of handicapping. You'll hear his opinions. Go with Byron's, not Dan's, but listen to the radio anyway tomorrow. I'm Louie Rabone. This has been the Horse Racing Happy Hour. Back at it tomorrow. We hope you'll be here with us as well. Good luck with all those bets today. Thank you.